All of us want to be compassionate beings, I think. So if I say to you, I love you, everyone clearly understands. I love you like a father. I love you like a lover, perhaps. I love you like a friend, a teacher. It doesn't matter. Everyone understands love. This concept, I believe, is universal. If, however, I say that I hate you, how do you hate me? You don't like the way I look, my ethnicity, my philosophy, my political stance. What is it? What do you hate about me? So we're confused, aren't we? We don't really know. So I believe that compassion emanates from, of course, love. Because we love each other, I think, basically. This is what we're taught in Judeo-Christian society. Love your fellow man. So the question becomes, how do you show your compassion? How do you do it? Well, I guess the very first person you must show compassion to, obviously, is yourself. You must be compassionate with yourself, but you must be demanding by the same token. You must demand certain things from you out of your piece of life. You must figure out this mission at some point, your mission, and get down to it. And you cannot be lazy. I think all of us have this tendency towards procrastination, put things off, not really be focused on the things I should be. But if you say to yourself, hey, Leon, get back on the path, well, normally you do, and you continue on with your goal in life, your passion in life, whatever that may be. So after you're compassionate with yourself, then you must be, of course, compassionate with the people around you, right? And sometimes we have this concept of tough love, if you will, that sometimes you do have to be somewhat truthful with people, as painful as it is. You have to tell them in a nice way, perhaps, that they're not on their path. They are straying. And I think one of the ways that we are compassionate, I think, is to be a model for others, because ultimately you can't really teach anyone anything. It's only if I'm willing to absorb what you're saying, or I watch your actions and I decide to copy them, that I can truly be a compassionate person in that sense, right? And people, you never know people, do you? I can touch you, I can feel the warmth of your body, but who are you? I mean, this is true for your children, for your friends, for your wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, etc. Everyone is distinct, but they do look at you as a model. If you're willing to be that model, if you're willing to be strong, and you could think to yourself, the people that you look up to, I mean, certainly you want to follow them, and they were compassionate people. They're compassionate with you. They're willing to talk to you, to assist you. I often think as a young man, 15, 16 years old, my mother was extremely compassionate to me. I guess the average person would say, well, she's your mother after all, for God's sakes. I mean, she's going to be compassionate anyhow. I think not true. Certainly, increasingly, young women are going to work. So both husband and wife are working to perhaps purchase some material possession, a house. And it isn't important to own a house, of course, but I think it's all about time. There's only so much time. And if your mother is busy finding a career, for whatever reason, she has less time for you. You become perhaps an icon that she created you with your father. That's a wonderful thing. She's proud that she created you biologically. But unfortunately, this is just the beginning of nurturing. And I've read an article recently that it's hard to be a nurturer and have a career at the same time. hard to do. So without some real balance, and people do it, of course, all the time, but it's not easy. In my case, however, my mother was a stay-at-home mom. That was very normal in this generation of baby boomers just after the war, right? As such. And so there was no concept that a woman was going to go to work after she married a man. She would stay home and nurture a family, considered just normal. And if you didn't, it was considered somewhat odd. If your mother had to go to work and work full time, this was considered great tragedy. And I think we've seen the results of a lack of one parent, a mother or a father, right? If there's not both parents in the family somehow and one nurturing, one working, well, I think the result is not always pretty. And I think that we are, as a society, less and less compassionate that we used to be. Now, part of our compassion, I honestly believe this, is sometimes, and I've said this before, there's an element of tough love that must come along with compassion. We certainly shouldn't allow people to live on a street and be addicted to drugs and not live out any life at all. This is just not fair. Not fair to them, it's not fair to the society. And how do we do this? How do we deal with homelessness effectively or drug addiction effectively and still be caring, loving people? This is a question that is going to come to us, I think, in modern society. But you cannot have 2 million homeless people and semi-homeless people like we have in North America at the moment. 40 million people are part of the working poor, if not more. Many without adequate housing. You can't have these things in a progressive society. And capitalism should be able to accommodate all elements of the society, right? Especially now with AI, many people tell us that the jobs such as the clerk in the bank, the bus driver, basic work will go away, will be gone. And many restaurants now, for instance, you go and you actually have a QR code that you scan. Well, at what point will the waitress be totally redundant? She won't be necessary. The number of servers will be totally diminished. Your food will be brought out by a robot. And I've been in restaurants that the robot has delivered my food. The only reason the waitress was there was to pick up the food, confirm the order, and put it on your table. So you can see where this is going. So I think compassion. Think to yourself, firstly, I'm going to be compassionate with me. I'm going to wake up in the morning. I'm going to thank God that I have another day of life. I'm going to write in my notebook. And then I'm going to get to work on building me, furthering my aims in life, completing my mission. Then I'm going to be a role model for my friends and others. And then ultimately, I'm going to have a moral stance. I will be a teacher perhaps like, in that sense, Socrates. He was never a teacher. He just asked questions and made people think. Because in our DBA, Don't Be a Wage Slave organization, we promote two things: critical thinking and, of course, be aware of time. This is very important. So be compassionate. Really try to help people. Open the door. Be gracious. Slow down in traffic, right? And we'll make the society ultimately a better place. Our small contribution will actually do something. And I'll just end with this thought. Put this in your notebook. An act of kindness. What act of kindness did I commit today? Something as small as opening a door. Someone was gracious to me. I went back with a box of chocolates. So it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, something small that people are reminded that compassion still exists, that kindness, thoughtfulness still exists in the world. And you know what they say? Critical thinking is everything, especially When it's attributed to compassion, you do it with compassion, and critical thinking is great. You take care. God bless. Bye bye.
Hello, everyone. This is Dave. Today is July 7th. It is the 16th day of our El Camino journey. The weather has been cooler than the previous days. We walked from Castro Harris in the morning to Fromista. It was about 24 kilometers. On our way from Castro Harris to Fromista, we started out going over some hills, and then things leveled out. And for the rest of our walk, we just walked through the meseta, and it was pretty flat. Today we're going to talk about compassion. So, for example, what would you do if you saw a woman sitting on a bench and she looks a bit cold? Well, we saw that this afternoon. One of our pilgrims that we've been traveling with, a lovely woman, she was sitting outside one of the churches we visited, and she looked a little cold, so we had considered lending her the sweater so that she would be warm. And of course, she refused, but we still had the concern for her and for her well being. Similarly, earlier in our journey, we were traveling with a woman named Anna, and it was getting hot. It was turning towards the afternoon. And once again, this woman was running into some problems. She was getting deeply sunburnt. So we stopped as we had some sun lotion, some sunscreen, and we left her use some to help her out. I think that compassion for your fellow humans is very important. It's something that we don't often stop and think about. We might see some people in trouble or in need, and we don't take the time to ask, "Are you all right?" On the El Camino, this is commonplace though. As we walk from town to town, village to village, we often come across other pilgrims, some which we have met previously, and other times, people we've never seen before in our life. As we walked up into the mountains and the hills this morning, we passed a couple, and we just said, "Bon Camino," a very encouraging statement to give them the strength to continue going 1 foot at a time, 1 step at a time, up the mountain. As we neared Fromista, we saw a body stretched out on the road in a roadway aligned with trees. Now, Leon and I, our first thoughts were not so great. Our mind ran wild as all along this Camino trail, we've occasionally seen some markers, memorial markers for people who unfortunately didn't make it to Santiago. And our minds ran wild as we saw the legs sticking out, outstretched on the ground. So we looked over, and then We paused a moment, and another woman looked up and she said, "Hello, how are you?" And we knew everything was fine. And at that, we were able to keep on walking.
David raises a really good point, doesn't he? That we really now in modern society are focused more and more on the internet. A lot of our relationships, in fact, are built on the internet, and we have difficulty even creating conversation such as, how are you today? Etc., etc. Truly, people do not know. So I think if we start in a very small way, we just begin by saying hello to another person, usually they will respond. Now, of course, in some cultures, if you walk along the street and you say hello, they think you're strange, of course. So you have to know where you are and you have to be a little bit careful, of course. But by the same token, most Western European, North American cities, Asian cities, they respond well to someone who is gracious and kind, right? So open the door, ask if they are fine, and just begin to interact with people because society increasingly is falling away from human contact. I think we all know this. AI, many people have said, will replace thousands of jobs of the bus driver, the clerk, etc. Many of whom we on an ongoing basis had interaction with. And when those positions are gone, then what happens? Little story. I took my luggage to Vancouver Airport, and it was a long lineup, so I went over to the electronic check-in, and my suitcase was half a kilo overweight. Half a kilo. Now, and it would not let me go forward. Now, half a kilo, they charge you 100 US dollars or Canadian dollars in this case because you're overweight. This is madness. So I went over, stood in a lineup, went a clerk through the clerk, saw the clerk, and she put my luggage on and she said, "Thank you very much, sir." And away it went. So this is the danger of the electronic industry, is that it is totally depersonalized. So be compassionate and grateful that you are alive and you are a human being and you have so much to share, because society must function on we, not on me. Now back to Dave.
Yes, that's very true. A long time ago, I used to work in a bookstore, and I used to see these kinds of things all the time. You would have some tourists coming in, and they would be angry and sweaty and tired. And they'd just look at you and utter some words. "Oh, where can I buy this?" Or "Where can I buy that?" And these people were really miserable. A lot of my colleagues, they would in turn be short with the customers, and then an argument would usually occur. For me, though, I realized that these people are just like us. They uh, they just want to have a good holiday, a good vacation. They've been planning it for months, and then something small happened. They got lost, or they tried to book into the hotel and it was full, or some nonsense like that. And this began this trend of them feeling frustrated and tired and hungry and sweaty. So I'd ask them, "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" And usually it would diffuse the situation. They would be so shocked and so surprised that somebody actually cared how they were doing, and they'd say, "No, actually, I'm not okay. I'm tired, I'm hot, I'm hungry, I'm sweaty." And we would talk a bit, and by the time they were done with their interaction, they'd leave with the book they wanted to buy and with a smile.
So, just to close, think to yourself the next time you run into a distraught or angry person, sometimes just a kind word, as David just said. "Hello, how are you today? Is everything fine? Can I be of assistance?" this actually calms people down. And on the El Camino, we've met people, as I said the other day, of all walks of life, the rich, the poor, the fat, the ugly, the handsome, the charming, just the whole cross section of life. And we must show compassion to our fellow human being and make the world a better place in a small way. So you take care. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.